Brillante. Bruchim habayim. Welcome, everybody. I think we can
Thank
share my screen here. Aha. Special thanks to Cassandra Tenenbaum for helping me figure out how to make this nice full screen here work.
My pleasure, Rabbi.
Well, Rabbi, you're getting pretty good at this Zoom stuff.
So, I must tell you, it didn't look nearly as nice the other night when we were presenting, because you could see all my tabs. So I was like, I don't want to show all those. Not that there's any secrets, but it doesn't look as big and bold like this.
You know how you can hide the tabs anyway.
Yeah, anyway, so this is like a full screen. I think that's probably what happened. It wasn't a full screen. All right, Chevre, let's bless. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Blessed are you, Adonai, sovereign over time and space. Makes us holy with commandments, commands us to engage in the study of Torah. Today, we get back to our conversation about mysticism and entrances to holiness. In fact, that is our primary focus today, although we're going to back up a little before we get to ShaareyShamayim, these entrances to holiness, and talk about Hasod, mystery. We talked about last week how the desert, which is our wide open space for preparing ourselves spiritually for change, major change. In the case of our ancestors, change from slavery to freedom. They needed to be in a place that was humbling, chastening, that would allow them to jettison all the baggage of slavery. In that kind of forbidding environment, they found actually that it's not nearly as harsh as it seems. It's actually more nurturing. Of course, as we make our way towards Sinai for Shavuot and Matan Torah, we know that the desert is a good place to reveal God's love and God's Torah, and ultimately our opportunity to impress that Torah upon our hearts so that we can live as free people and pursue mitzvot, which help us to be more whole and our world to be more whole. All right, so what do we got here in the chat? Okay, so by the way, although we not practice this completely strictly, my goal here is to take us up to the top of the hour, maybe a couple minutes past if we need to, but really for an hour. If you need to leave at 12, that's fine. If you need to leave before that, that's fine. But we're going to try and keep these online classes close to an hour as possible going forward. I don't know how we'll deliver the rest of the material per se, but maybe we'll figure that out and go from there. So anyway, so let's get to a bit of review. So last week we introduced the second gate, which is Hasod. Sod means mystery. And we have this nice text about the senses and how the senses link us to mystery in our lives. So, a tree in blossom. Let's start with Devorah.
A tree in blossom. Fragrance is the most mysterious of them all. Very subtle, sensual, unavoidable, fleeting. You cannot help breathing, encountering aroma. The path I take to the synagogue winds through a small park in the center of town. And in the middle of the park is a tree that blooms with thousands of white clustered blossoms. The branches droop with the weight of their flowers. And if you walk under the tree, you must bend down and wend this way and that to avoid the foliage. The tree and the blossoms are everywhere. You only see a few inches ahead of you. As if on wheels, you glide through the lush spring, and then you are out of it and it is gone. But more than anything, it is the fragrance that envelops you. For maybe a minute or so, there's only the sensation of smell. You cannot see or feel or taste or touch. If only you could bask in this air forever. Join the tree in her seductive perfumed holiness. But you cannot, you are only a traveler. And then you are out of it and it is gone. But you cherish the affair and yearn to walk that way again. What began with the mystery of fragrance has become a gateway.
All right. Thank you so much. This collection of texts in Honey from the Rock is all about discovering these entry points, these doorways, these gateways to holiness. And sorry, just letting somebody in. Much like the experience in the desert, which opens us up to our greater possibilities, our greater spiritual possibilities that come through freedom from slavery, that come through commitment to mitzvot, that come from touching nature and enveloping ourselves in its nurturing realities. All that is powerful and transformative, but it's also mysterious. And so not only is the midbar an entry point, but the very mystery the midbar lays out. And in this case, Rabbi Kushner is walking through a place that's not a midbar, it's a park, it's lush, it's obviously fertile. But what remains mysterious about that fertile place is not necessarily what you see, but what you hear. What you smell. Almost got that nailed down. Indeed, a beautiful space. Indeed, probably a wonderful space to hear things like birds chirping, wind blowing by. But it's this smell that kind of lingers and that carries us forward. But because we actually leave that space and we don't literally smell the fragrance, it takes on a mystery, but it remains a doorway, a gateway for us towards something very special and very holy. Can you think of another framework in Jewish tradition and Jewish practice and Jewish ritual where we think about the lingering of fragrance that allows us to pull something kind of mysterious forward with us as we move forward?
The Havdalah?
Yes, Marcia, the Havdalah. Exactly.
And
So
what about the prayer over Challah?
why so?
Because you're standing over this fragrant thread.
Okay, great. And I suppose you could add the wine as well. You know, that
Yeah.
there's a fragrance the wine puts forward. That's fine too. I like both those concepts. I mean, Shabbat really, besides the challah and besides the wine, if you have Shabbat dinner once in a while in your home, or if you've ever had it in your home, or you've had it at temple, the smells are magnificent, right? It creates a whole reality that draws you in, that invites you in, right? It smells so yummy. So surely Shabbat, in its beginning, provides smells that draw us in, that beckon us inward. And of course, at the end of Shabbat, when we make Havdalah and we separate from holy to ordinary, we take a sense of that essence with us. We take a little bit of that fragrance with us. In some ways, it comforts us because leaving Shabbat can be sad. In some ways, it empowers us and gives us hope that Shabbat will come again. But in the meantime, we'll take this essence with us. Now, because you literally cannot smell the challah forever, right? Even after the meal's gone and you go home, you don't smell it anymore. But you remember the positive feeling of smelling it. And just after Havdalah, it may not literally carry with us. It does give us a different way of thinking about moving from sacred to mundane, from the extraordinary to the ordinary. And it just empowers us and it just inspires us. Can you think of a situation where you were also in a space where there was this stunning fragrance that really transported you. Can you relate to this walk through the park, encountering these blossoms?
Yes, especially now. We do have some blossoms on trees in Chicago.
I agree. The white blossoms. What kind of trees are those?
So, Rabbi, there are a couple of trees right now that are in blooms that are white. The ones that smell disappointing when you get close are Bradford pears. And they smell the way they smell because they're pollinated by flies and not bees. Then you get star magnolias, which are very fragrant, and it's just the flower that will be on the tree, no leaves, and it's star-shaped, and those smell very sweet. You've got viburnum that are starting to come out right now that have a pinkish hue and, again, a very sweet fragrance.
Wow.
It's a little early for any of the locusts to be blooming, but we should be getting those soon. And then also people might be beginning to see catalpas, but those are
catalpas.
not
more than just a street.
Yeah, no, it's a tree. They grow very big, they grow very fast, and this is totally off topic, so I'm going to mute myself.
No, you're great. Actually, Cassandra, you are the master of fun facts, let me tell you.
Rabbi?
My friends, if you ever want a fun fact, go to Cassandra first, and she will help you.
I'm great at
and regale you and inspire you and impress you. Yes, very impressive.
Rabbi?
Yes.
I've been to DC.
Yes.
At this time when the cherry blossoms are out, and they're amazing.
Yes, yes.
Ever been in I agree, as a family with a strong affection for the Washington, D.C. area, you know, Betsy grew up in McLean, Virginia. So we've spent many, many, many moments around blossoming cherry trees and being in the capital. It's a very fragrant place. And in its own way, mysterious place. Never ceases to be mysterious at any age, especially now. So, ever been in a eucalyptus forest?
Oh.
Yes.
I used to ride my bike to school through a eucalyptus forest, and I thought it was just a great way to not only embrace nature, but the power of learning. As I made my way to campus on my bicycle, it was really powerful. So I do understand intuitively this capacity for fragrance to transport us. It becomes a conveyor from ordinary to extraordinary, from mundane to sacred. Now, I don't think that the power of smell is the only sense that can transport us, right? If we see with our eyes something spectacular, I always bring up Yosemite as the most beautiful place I've ever been. With sight, I find this radical amazement that Rabbi Heschel talks about. It's not a function of smell, even of hearing. It's definitely of sight.
There's an underside or another side to smell, which is the the dark side of smell. You know, I remember as when I first got a car, and I used to love to go to fires, because the fire engines went and you could go, until I came to a fire that someone had died in the fire, and I can still remember that smell.
Yeah.
So there's very dark that can envelop you too.
Yeah. Well, Cassandra puts in the box, Mary Lou, that we find our memory through smell.
Yeah, the portion of your brain that takes short-term memory and transforms it into long-term memory is entwined with the part of your brain that processes olfactory information.
Yeah, well put. All right, so let's move forward. Now that we've made our way through the midbar, preparing for the wilderness, and now we've gotten an idea about the power of Sod, or mystery. We want to discover another portal, another gateway. And this gateway we call ShaareyShamayim, entrances to holiness. Specifically here, entrances to heaven or the heavens, but entrances to holiness. And I would say, by the way, that the previous two Sharim, the previous two gates are also entry points to holiness. It's all about finding holiness. But this has a specific name, ShaareyShamayim. So let's see what that's all about. Linda, please. His presence fills the world.
Entrances to holiness are everywhere. The possibility of ascent is all the time. Even at unlikely times and through unlikely places, there is no place like on earth without the presence.
Sorry about that. Let's go back. Ben's question, how many gates are there? 10. We will be looking at 10 gates. So we're gate number 3. So much like we learned when we looked at the goblet and saw goblet, 2 faces. And even if we think about looking at that, maybe more dimensionality, 3D or 4D or 5D, we might see more dimensions. The point is that there are multiple realities. And those multiple realities possess within each of them some portal to holiness. Right? So, by the way, just to use a particular example, right? Mary Lou's example about fire and smoke, which is very different than the more fragrant, I'm sorry to keep moving these slides, which is very different than maybe those fragrances that mark Shabbat, which are a lot happier and a lot more fulfilling. The reality is, because both those fragrances or smells evoke aspects of memory, in one case, the joy of Shabbat. In one case, maybe fear or loss, right? Which can thrust us into a mourning behavior, which can be holy in its own right. There are entry points to the sacred. There are ways to connect with God that exists in every little aspect. In other words, because God is everywhere, so the theology invites, so are these portals to holiness. Are the gates accessible all the time? I think that they're unlocked all the time. I think the gates are unlocked all the time. Whether they're accessible has a lot to do with how you use them, right? I think for some of us, the gates are unlocked and easy to access. For others, they are difficult to access despite their being unlocked. And sometimes some are easier than others. But I would say that they're accessible all the time. They're unlocked all the time. Whether we access them or not is a choice. Think about the smells from the death camps. Well, I imagine somebody who's a survivor who carries memories of those smells with them must have to deal with a lot of pain and suffering. At the same time, by the way, in Rabbi Wolpe's book, talks about things like lingering smells and lingering sights and visions. And he talks about this orchestra of like violinists playing and creating music in a sense, these were individuals who found a way to fill the space with something sacred, the ugly, devastating, horrific space with something holy. And in so doing, we're able to transform that space in such a way that it made lost matter. Rabbi Wolpe talks about making lost matter. So sometimes we step into these dark spaces or have these dark memories that don't happen to teach us lessons. They happen because people are awful. But then we are given an opportunity, in a way, if we are open to it, to step into those losses and to make them matter by discovering the holiness that lays therein that may be very hard to access. I thought you had to go through the first gate and then the second gate. If that's true, then I'm not aware of it. I'm not convinced, mostly because I'm not a linear thinker, that you can only access one and then the next and then the next. There may be some wisdom out there that reflects this kind of linear motion, but I find that ultimately, like the process of mourning, well, some may think it's linear. I think, Jewishly speaking, it's a lot of going forward and back, you know, and that's normal. It's not so linear. So we can figure out, you know, the linearity of our motion through these gates. Ben says he thought he heard about 50 gates. Well, why not? We're going to look at 10 here. So if there's 50, well, it makes sense to me given the fact that there's so many entry points to holiness. My guess is that there's more than 50 then, you know, by that logic. All right, let's move the text. Okay, so here we have a longer text. Let's jump in. Cassandra, please.
With only a rock for a pillow. Jacob, our father, was on the run, with only a rock for a pillow, in what he thought was some God-forsaken wilderness, until he had a dream. Surely the Holy One himself must have been in this very place, and I didn't even know it. And then he was afraid. He said, "How awesome is this place? There is none other than God's house. This is none other than God's house, and here I am at the very doorway to heaven." In another place, we read of how the Holy One chose a common, insignificant thorn bush, as if to teach us that nothing is beneath being a gateway to the Most High. He could have summoned mountains or oceans or the heavens themselves, but instead he opened a bush. And Moses looked, and behold, the bush was on fire, but that the bush was not consumed. How long must someone look at a burning bush to know whether or not it's being consumed? I've wondered that myself. Certainly longer than most people look at anything. Longer, in other words, than you need to. More than to see it or to use it. Long enough to see if it will be for you an entrance. Such a man was Moses, our teacher. And likewise, anyone who was able to gaze on a place long enough without being distracted. Once there was a man who could enter the higher worlds merely by drawing a circle in the earth and standing within it. I can do nothing very well except draw circles and stand in them, he would say. But the circles are as perfect as humanly possible, and I can station myself within them without distraction. And so the Holy One would come out of hiding. Such a man was Honi, the circle dryer. In Tanit 19a, in the place upon which you are standing is holy ground. Not the ground then, but this ground now. Not Jacob or Moses or Honi, but you who are reading these lines. You who don't have anywhere to go but to raise yourself. You do not have to go anywhere to raise yourself. You do not have to be, woof.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Who's this guy working the slides? Sorry. Okay.
You don't have to go anywhere to raise yourself. You do not have to become anyone other than yourself to find entrances. You're already there. You are already everything you need to be. Entrances are everywhere and all the time. There is no man who does not have his hour, and no thing that does not have its place. And that's from Pirkei Avot.
All right. So this really gets at the heart of our answer, you know. How many gates are there? How accessible are those gates? So when we talk about a gate being a rock, we talk about a gate being a bush. We talk about a gate being a circle, or the midbar, or something mysterious. What does that say about the nature of gates?
You have to look for them.
Yeah, well, look, the burning bush, it was obvious to how many people?
One.
One. The idea, according to tradition, is that people walked by the bush left and right, but only one guy saw it, Moses, because he was ready to see it. It was there the whole time, but people didn't know. God was in this place, and I did not know. This is a powerful verse from Genesis that seems to indicate to us that the gates are open if we are paying attention. And in order to pay attention, we have to look down at our feet. Or we have to think of the most unlikely place that will be that conveyor to the sacred. A rock, bush, somebody drawing a circle and stepping in it and bringing rain that nourishes the earth and saves the people from famine. The midbar, which looks forbidding, deadly, harsh, and yet is so nurturing, so heart and mind and soul opening. You know, in Harry Potter, they have the port key. You know what that is?
Oh, yeah. That's where you can go places
Right.
just
So
by touching a certain object.
The port key reminds me of such a portal, and not necessarily to the sacred. In this case, it's a transporter. Takes you from one place to the next if you touch it. But that's what these ShaareyShamayim are. They're in some ways unlike anything that may seem completely spectacular and miraculous. Incidentally, why is that important? Why should we be transported by like a rock or a bush, something mundane?
Mainly what we have are things that are mundane.
Yeah, I mean, are we constantly living in miracles?
Oh, no.
Oh, one thing that makes a miracle is its rarity. And so we don't have a lot of miracles because then they wouldn't be miracles. They would be more normative. We have a lot of rocks, though, don't we? And a lot of bushes. I don't think many of us draw circles and step in them and pray for rain. Maybe Ben does. Just kidding, Ben. You know, what they're saying here is holy ground is pretty much everywhere. So make sure you take your shoes off. Because there's going to be a moment to pay attention to the sacred potential of any ordinary moment. I mean, that's what it means to be Jewish, is to discover the extraordinary in the ordinary and to give thanks for that recognition and the power it has to transform our lives and the world around us.
Hey, so isn't this, Rabbi, the very heart of mysticism? paradox that the sacred comes from the mundane and the
Yeah.
mundane the sacred? I mean, everything is paradoxical and really what apparent opposites, but they're really not opposites. One comes from the other.
Yeah, exactly. But there's a connection. There's a connectedness, and that the portals kind of, they interact. Again, it's like the white olive on a black background. Maybe it's a white olive on a black background. Maybe it's an olive cut out of a black background. Or maybe it's a goblet. Maybe it's two profiles. Those multiple realities exist, and they both are entry points. Even if they're ordinary, even if they are not miraculous. I hear somebody and something going on in their background. It wouldn't be so bad if we didn't hear the background noise. You don't have to be on speaker if you're in a quiet space.
I better turn off my radio. Wait 1 second.
That would be great. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
No problem. Okay, got it. All right, so
No,
let's.
that's not it.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it
I
is.
don't hear it anymore.
Yeah, it is.
All right, thank goodness. Okay.
Hold
All
up.
right. So here we're gonna move towards another visual cue of a portal. We talked about smell being so important because it conveys memory. By the way, I think light does the same. I don't know if there's scientific explanation for that, but seeing is believing, right? I mean, sight.
I hope that's better.
Lock in. You're fine. Thank you.
Okay.
So let's see. Iris, please. Oh, blessed candles.
Oh, blessed candles. I remember how on one early dark November before dinner time evening, I saw you, slid through you and behind you. You took you with me and was blessed to recite the blessing, who has brought us to this precious moment.
Okay. So, by the way, what is this blessing?
Shehechianu.
Yes. Well, it's sort of. I think it combines two ideas here. Certainly, there's a blessing over candles, Hadlikat Hanerot, and there's a Shechianu that brings us to a level of thanksgiving for arriving at such a powerful and transformative moment. What is key here, Hebrei, is the power of blessings. Blessings and rituals. Candle lighting is an important entry point because, fill in the blanks. Why do we start off a service with candle lighting?
It gets us ready. Kind of like the Baruch Hu.
Okay, so ready in what way? What exactly are we ushering in?
Visually ready.
Okay, there's a visual element here.
And the
sacred.
prayer and the hearing the blessing. So you have two, and even the fragrance.
For sure.
We're also,
I think when we get right down to it, all the senses contribute to our understanding of these pathways. I think many or all of our senses become conveyors from ordinary to extraordinary for different reasons. And we talked some weeks ago during Tazria Metzora about the power of a human gesture. A proper, consensual, caring human gesture can transform one's sense of community. Just as an improper human gesture can hurt a sense of community. That has to do with touch, smelling, hearing, seeing, all are portals for us. Here we take in a visual opportunity and a practical opportunity. It's a ritual here. And then there's a recital of blessing, which is heard. So we have this combination of conveyors, of portals, of entry points, of gates that take us into such a precious moment. What I was thinking about in terms of Shabbat and kindling the candlelights is that when we kindle Shabbat candles, we are not just bringing light to the room like a light bulb does. We are bringing a special kind of light. We're bringing the light of God to bear. We're bringing the light of creation to bear. This is what we call a primordial light, an ancient light. Has nothing to do with electricity, doesn't even have anything to do with the sun or the moon. It has to do with this light that fills the abyss, that fills that darkness at the beginning and creates shape, sacred shape to the world, which in itself is very mysterious because it comes out of the darkness. We learned that olam has to do with mystery. Oh, by the way, remember, Tari on my homework, I forgot to look up the root, ayin lamed mem. Somebody should do that. Somebody should look up that root online while we're moving forward. And we'll get a sense of what the root ayin lamed mem means.
So according to the Analytical Hebrew and Told We Lexicon, ayin lamed mem is, hang on, I just had it. So it's a root that in its initial, like its primary meaning is verbal. It means to hide or to concede.
Okay.
Sorry. And then the noun is that which is hidden or concealed.
There you go. There you go. So it's a pretty straightforward definition.
None of that's in the dictionary.
The very olam in which we live, the very world in which we live is shrouded in mystery. Fundamental essence is mysterious. And so our opportunity in life is to figure out how to bring light to that mystery. So when we kindle our candles and we say a blessing, it's as if we are taking that shroud of mystery up off our world. And we're letting this primordial light shine in, this light of God shine in, and it renders our world less mysterious, at least in the moment, and more precious. Precious because we're thankful for God's light. Precious because we're thankful for God's creation. Thankful because we're appreciative of our role as God's partners, B'Tselem Elohim, created in God's image. Thankful that we have Shabbat, that we can rest from all the hard work. What a transformative moment this candle lighting is, and bringing in the light and being thankful for being transported to this precious moment. All right, speaking of precious moments and the use of prayers, I love this next teaching. It's about my colleague, Rabbi Kushner, Noah Kushner, who I was a rabbinic school student with, starting in Israel. And this is about her when she was little, about 6 years old. And it reflects not only the power of nature to transform us and transport us into holiness, but the power of blessing when we're not quite sure how to make our way into that holy moment. So let's see here. Who haven't I called on yet? Sima, you want to read for us?
I don't have the text. No.
Oh, you don't? Okay.
I don't have the written text here.
Oh, okay, no problem.
I don't know what I did something wrong, but whatever.
No problem. No problem. Who hasn't read yet? All right. Mary Lou, have you read?
No.
Okay, go ahead.
The first snow, is that the one?
The first snow, yes.
Okay. One day I visited my daughter's first grade class. There was a teacher and her assistant and myself, and 18 souls who have been present but for 6 winters. The air hung with a November chill. Children were work playing in 4 or 5 groups when the mist outside turned imperceptibly into snowflakes. Look, it's snowing outside, one shouted. Winter is here, and the groups crumbled as their members ran to the window. No need for daily prayer here, or for the proper blessing on seeing nature's wonders for the first time. Not for them, but for me. Praised are you, O holy, wonderful Lord, Master of the universe, who makes things like this. Daily prayer book. Quick, Daddy, help me on with my coat. We're going outside. And I stood at the window watching the snow fall on my little girl. There are places children go that grown-ups can only observe from afar.
What a rich teaching.
Rabbi Zedek liked this one.
Has he used this teaching before?
Yes. During
So
service.
why do you think that young Noah and her classmates, these sweet 18 souls around for but 6 winters, were able to shift on a proverbial dime, going from whatever their project was to witnessing something that Rabbi Kushner, the elder Kushner, marks as imperceptible. There's this very subtle, imperceptible shift, and they are on it, where he needs prayer and intentionality to pull him in. Both enter this sacred space. Both come into that holy moment, and both come out with a level of appreciation. What enables sort of the pure shift for the kids? And why is it more difficult, perhaps, for us as adults to make that pure shift?
Rabbi?
Yes, Deborah.
Part of it is just simple wonderment. And I now remember when it started snowing in one of my classes, and I was less than appreciative as Rabbi Kushner was here, because I said, yes, it turned to snow, let's get back to our work.
Right.
And I'm thinking now that was so wrong. They're 9 and 10-year-olds, but maybe should have taken that moment to do a Shehechianu with them, because that they might have gotten, but I tamped it down and said, no, let's continue.
Well, look, go easy on yourself. We're here learning, and we're here trying to understand, in fact, that there are portals to holiness. There are ShaareyShamayim, there are gates to heavens that we don't always recognize as such.
I just hope that we get back to that so that I can recognize it when it happens again.
Guess what? Devorah, you know as well as anybody, it's going to snow here again.
No, but will I be teaching in a classroom when it snows again?
Yeah, well, I think that there's excellent potential that you'll be in a classroom, that we will have a snow, that we will actually be back at 5959 North Sheridan. I think all these things are, they will not take miracles. Let's put it this way. And you will have an opportunity to transport into one of those imperceptible moments. Look, again, Judaism is the opportunity to pay attention. It is the responsibility to pay attention to the extraordinary in the ordinary. That doesn't mean we are always ready to go. So I guess sort of the corollary question, right, is just as the kids can flow into the moment on a proverbial spiritual dime, why do we as adults struggle to recognize these amazing moments of passage?
Because we have work to do.
Okay.
We have
Well,
baggage.
I think it goes back to wonderment, which is what divorce started with.
Yeah.
They're, especially young children, these are 6 years old. They're experiencing everything almost for the first time, which is a wonderful and beautiful thing.
Yeah.
So, as someone who doesn't like to be cold, I don't know that I would have run to go outside, but I appreciate that they did.
Yeah.
And on the subject of Shehachianu, I can only imagine, Devorah, that when you are actually in the classroom again, there will be cause for Shehachianu before you start that.
Yeah. Look, just being back in the classroom will be a Shechianu moment.
Right, right.
Big time.
For sure. Look, I think sometimes we go back to that Jacob text where, he's busy, he's on the run, he's trying to figure out the purpose of his life, he's scared, he has made some mistakes, he's consumed in ways that the little ones are not.
Right.
And so they have maybe a more direct path, one or maybe a less impeded path. But our path is not impossible to pass. It is very possible to pass. You just need to know what to do. And so sometimes it is a matter of intentionality and being able to shift. But sometimes it's about using prayer and using ritual and using blessing in particular, which is gratitude to God for bringing such blessings and opportunities and pathways and entry points and ShaareyShamayim. We can be transported too. All right, I'm taking a look at time. I think we have time for one more text. And then we'll close up for the day. And here we have a nice text about the shortest proper blessing. Ben, please.
Okay, one Shabbos dinner, both children were ill. We spent more time trying to pacify them than on making a holy meal. And as so often happens at such times, the end of the meal, with its sharing and singing and blessing, simply disintegrated. I was left alone at the table without even enough dedication to sing the final blessing. It was then that I remembered that a friend had pointed out to me the shortest ritually sufficient concluding prayer. He had even written it down on a card that was somewhere in the study. I resolved to say its 5 Aramaic words, if only I could find it. Once I located it, I realized that I had misspelled a word and that I wasn't sure of the meaning of the 2 others. First, I had to search out the phrase in Tractate Barachot. Then I had to look up the words, which by now had become very important. Now, as it happens, God gave me a good hand, and I am something of a calligrapher. I decided to write the blessing in as beautiful a script as I could. I convinced myself that the prohibition against writing on the Sabbath had not been intended to thwart so personal a mode of thanks. Not only would I fix the words in my mind, but I might, on this confused evening, offer the work of my hands in gratitude. It was one of those beautiful sunset evenings, the long shadows of the trees gently blowing in the evening breeze. And just as I made the last dot, I became aware that someone was in the room. I looked up expecting to find Karen or one of the kids who were very good at sneaking up on you. But no one was there, just a presence and the fading shadows. Blessed be the compassionate one, master of the spread. Barachot 40b.
Yeah. So one thing for sure that will interrupt a spiritual flow is the chaos around us. It could be the sweet noise of children. It could be the sweet noise of parents trying to quiet children. It could be the challenges of trying to create a sense of order in our lives in a place of chaos. Normal, like, kids being kids. Less normal, like coronavirus and the chaos ensuing. And yet, even in the busiest, most hectic of moments, we can access blessing, even short ones, which allow us to convey gratitude, whether it's for a meal or for its life itself, or it's the power of connection to family and community, or it is health and resilience. We have the chance to be thankful, and blessings can convey that thanksgiving in a way that allows us to appreciate the holiness we witness. Now, what do we make of this effort that he puts forward to actually calligraphy the short blessing, which, by the way, is here at the end? Sorry about that. What does the actual act of calligraphy do for him?
Imprint
It
Mhm.
probably helps him remember the blessing, because once you write something down, you generally don't forget it.
Okay, right. So he kind of creates a physical practice.
It opened the gate for him.
Yeah, it was as if he had a key. It's like his calligraphy pen was a key to the gate. He opened the gate. Now, do we have to sit down and calligraphy every blessing that we come across? No,
No, that was his key.
that's right. I
and
think
In
it's really
that
important to clarify that. He found a key that created a space. It helped him find intentionality to make that passage
in that moment.
in that moment, where he was able to not only summon thanksgiving, but he was able to feel the presence, the quiet presence of maybe God or something, but it definitely evoked this prayer and blessing of the compassionate one who is the master of bread. So even on Shabbat, right, he took on this moment of writing. I love this notion that the prohibition on writing during Shabbat is not to thwart a thank you note to God. It's like, if you're going to write to God, go for it. No problem. Any last questions or thoughts before we close for the day? Bye, Deborah.
Rabbi, if I may, this
Yeah.
brings me to mind. I was listening to a lecture this week by a woman who mentioned that art is a form of midrash if you approach it in the appropriate mindset. And so that is how this person who is Shomer Shabbos sort of squares the impulse, answering the call to paint on Shabbat with the prohibition against doing work. Well, it's midrash, it's tefillah, it's a physical tefillah. So I'm praying even though I'm engaging in what might be work for someone else.
Yeah. I think that sounds great. I think that sounds like a wonderful pathway, a wonderful gateway, a sha'ar. You know, others may feel that writing is, you know, just that, a forbidden form of melacha, a forbidden form of work. And so, you know, we're trying to rest on Shabbat. I understand that perspective, but I think that, you know, here we learn that we have unique ways of accessing these gates of Shamayim. And so I can assure you, if I tried to calligraphy a blessing as a way of opening that ShaareyShamayim, it would feel locked to me. I'd much rather go for a run, you know, and somewhere in the 5 miles of my run, I will open that door. I will walk through that gate. For me, that's a much better strategy. So what I want you to take away from this shortest proper blessing is that we all possess the capacity to make it. We just need to figure out how best to make it. And if we do make it, the notion is that we will be able to walk through the ShaareyShamayim of our lives, whether this one or some other one. I really enjoy spending time with you here. It's a wonderful way for us to prepare for Shabbat. I wish you a Shabbat Shalom and Mevarach, a Sabbath of peace and blessing. And I hope that you also find a key that opens up some ShaareyShamayim, some gate of holiness, that you can walk through it and enjoy the riches within. Let us
Thank you.
have a wonderful,
Shabbat shalom.
wonderful Shabbat Shalom. Let's
Shabbat Shalom.
stay well.
Back
Okay.
to
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat
Glad to have
shalom.
you. Take good care now.
Bye-bye now.
Shabbat Shalom. Lehitraot.
Shabbat Shalom.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well done, all. We'll see you soon. Take care.